what are some other things that somebody can do to take back control of themselves when they're in a narcissistic relationship other than not getting defensive?
Sure. Not getting defensive, because recognizing defensiveness is pretty useless. It's not going to serve you. I know that would be a natural feeling to want to do, but I don't do things that are natural when they don't serve me. Staying calm, learning to stay calm, and some of that involves doing the work of detachment, learning to be detached. I use a kind of a technique of Coca-Cola language. When somebody says, Jerry, you're stupid and you're the worst coach in the world, what I usually interpret that differently and go, they're calling me a Coca-Cola. Now, how upset should I be about that? I'm not a Coca-Cola. So, and just like if a narcissist says you're the worst wife in the world, and it's like, it's just noise. And that helps reduce the hurt and us not taking it personally. Narcissists are not well. They are going to say not well things. Be careful about personalizing it. It's their madness. Now, I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying their madness is an easy thing to deal with, but am I going to get caught up in their belief system, which is totally distorted? And so we want to gain some sense of self and detachment inside, going, well, I wish he wouldn't call me that, but there's no way possible that's true. There's no way in the world. It's ridiculous. Now, I wouldn't tell them that. I wouldn't tell the narcissist that, because they must always be viewed as being serious and superior and in control of the situation. So you start telling them that they're not, now you're going to have a more highly charged situation. I want to keep me under control, which can improve the relationship system control and what's managed there. So detachment, reframing this craziness that they're saying, no matter even how hurtful it is. Because if someone says something really, really hurtful, it's like, do I believe that about me? Jerry, you're the ugliest man in the world. Well, I know I'm not Brad Pitt. I'll grant you that. But ugliest? I don't know. I've seen a few that might beat me with that. And what does it matter anyway? And it doesn't matter. So finding more detachment inside, which also helps me with inner boundaries. In other words, I don't want your words to get into my inner boundaries. And I want to be careful not to get inside your inner dialogue. I got to stay on my side of the tennis net. I'm not going to get involved in the narcissist's whole inner dialogue, because you will be going down the rabbit hole, which then just takes the focus off yourself and doesn't get you anywhere, because their thinking oftentimes cannot be even sorted out. But we'll get, oh, well, why would they say that? What did I do that caused them to say that? Am I really that way? I've always kind of felt bad about myself. Maybe there's some truth to this. Now I'm all into their inner dialogue. Get out of there. Get out of there and stay out of there. I don't know if those things would be helpful, but those are some helpful tips I tried to give people.
How are narcissists created?
Well, that's $1 million question. Do you have $1 million? I'll answer that for you. No, and I'm not sure I could even answer it for you then. We know it's a combination of things. And I think there are many people, as I've worked in for therapy and therapy for years, and studying this topic and researching things, and having passed in my past being a marriage and family therapist, a pastoral counselor, a social worker, a addictions therapist. I've worked on thinking about these things because I used to work with families of addicted and alcoholic folks. And so these were important questions. How did this start? For the narcissist and personality disorders, we don't have all the answers. It's genetics, it's nature, it's nurture, it's family transmission of psychological trauma. It can be abuse, traumatic abuse that a child may experience. Many people will say, well, nobody can be a narcissist without having abusive or narcissistic parent or parents. That's not been my experience. I haven't seen that. And having worked in a psychiatric clinic for many years, that's just, there are many exceptions to the rule. So I think it's better to say it's a combination of things that create this, from genetics to psychological, biochemical. It's just, personality disorders are complicated. I mean, why is somebody hypochondriacal? They're always sick all the time, and they have a hypochondriacal personality disorder. Tell me exactly where that began and how it happened. Well, we just don't have that knowledge. We have some pointers, and I think those are fair, but I just am always worried when somebody just says, well, this is what I believe. This is the orthodoxy I believe, the doctrine that I'm going, be careful, because there are exceptions to that. Just like having a child who becomes a narcissistic adult and the parents are not narcissists. How did that happen? And they'd say, oh, well, then the parents are lying. Well, I don't know. I've worked with the parents for years. I haven't found them lying. They're not narcissists. What do I do with that?
What are some things or behaviors that narcissists exhibit that should cause somebody to run as fast as possible?
Great question, Doug. That's a good one. I have really, not many people have asked me that question, but I think it's a good one. The one thing to remember, a narcissist can love bomb. In other words, they can mirror behaving well and even mirror empathy, but it's not genuine. It's just they've seen someone do that, and they know to do that this is what you do. So it can be a little tough early on, because they can be charming. Narcissists can be charming, and then be evil, and then be problematic. And so being aware of that. But see, that's where I also tell people, if you're falling for someone too quickly, see that as a red flag. Because my hunch is that may not serve you. There are other dynamics you're not seeing that you're just, we just had these 2 dates that were just absolutely phenomenal. I think I could spend my life with him or her. Well, hold on. It sounds like you're more enmeshing with him or her than you are managing the relationship flow and the development of it. The other things that I suggest is, and I even tell clients who have divorced and then started dating, and what do I do to kind of find out who's who? Disagree with your partner. Not in a horrible way, not in a mean way, but just disagree with them. See what happens. And it can be on a minor thing even. Say no. See what happens. Um, Also, you want to be aware of, do they feel empathy? Do they feel empathy for the waiter, the waitress, the other people? Are they demonstrating some empathy? And then also, do they ever talk about feeling guilty? And many times they won't. There is no guilt. And I believe, and in fact, I've even advised people, if they've had trouble with relationships in the past, there's a great book called Psychopath Free. And it's a good book to read, to educate yourself in going out there, because I'm afraid we have a lot of psychopaths in our society, even neighbors, even who don't have the empathy, who don't have the, they may have a little sociopathic, edge to them. And I think it's much more common than people realize. So if you educate yourself, you can kind of watch for some signs or cracks in the wall and go, and trust your gut when you see a crack in the wall. Don't go, oh, well, I don't want to be too judgmental. Yeah, but if they treated the waiter badly for no good reason, that's a red flag. Hold on. What did that waiter do to you? And they'll justify it, and they have every good reason why they did that. And then you could even say, well, I understand you're free to do whatever you want to do, Betty. But I think I would have handled that differently. And see what they say. See how they deal with that. Do they get upset? Do they brush you off? Do they, because a relationship has to do with give and take. And they may not be too good with give and take. They may like the take part. So those are some suggestions that I might offer to folks.
And how can people heal from all of this? Like, we're talking a lot about the signs, how to navigate things when they're in the process of finding out that somebody is a certain way. But let's just say, like, what's the best way to like exit a relationship like this if they need to, without there being any sort of threat or harm or abuse that would follow?
Well, and that's where being in a relationship with a narcissist can be complicated, because it may not be easy to just walk away, because now the narcissists kind of have their hooks into you, and you also are propping up their ego and are part of their supply, so that they can feel worthy or important or powerful, or you're providing a lot of things for them. And then when we say, I think this is really not for me, that's not good news to a narcissist. And so you may want to get some coaching or some help if you're going to do that, so you can do it effectively, safely, and with good planning. Don't expect the narcissist to behave with normal relationship rules. That's what I've been trying to say. You have to understand they're not going to do that. So you need to be wise in how you handle this. And so get some help. Then in the healing part, let's say you have left and now you have some trauma or scars from the narcissist, then you work on the healing part of coming out of denial about that, working on getting yourself out of the chaos with the narcissist. And then the stage 3 I think of is the stage of self-differentiation, and using family systems approach and self-differentiation as a way to become the person, adult, mature person that is confident and not ruled by their wounds and trauma, and becoming yourself. And that's kind of and self-differentiation is a big part of the work that I help people do, because there's often way too much enmeshment going on in folks' lives. an overconnectedness emotionally, where we're on top of each other rather than have a relationship with each other. We're like this. Well, it's hard to maneuver. It's hard to be an adult when you're emotionally intertwined like that. And in fact, I have couples that come that are like this, and they say, we just don't feel very close. Could you help us be closer, Jerry? And I go, oh, I think that would be malpractice if I did that, because you're already like this. You probably are over close, but we don't feel over close. No, you may not. This doesn't feel over close. You may need more distance to actually have a relationship. And many people end up thinking, I just want to be closer and closer and closer. Too much closeness is water good for you? But is 12 gallons of water good for you? No. And so closeness is good for you, but not 12 gallons of closeness. You're going to poison yourself. And many people's relationship have become poisoned in that way.
If you were to create a blueprint for somebody to heal and to differentiate themselves and to become whole so that they could have healthier relationships moving forward, including the one with themselves after, being in toxic patterns and relationships, what would that blueprint look like?
Well, there would be 3 parts, but I would involve some other things. One is helping them learn self-awareness. Number 2, self-regulation. And number 3, self-definition. And that I would also say, how is your family of origin functioning in you today? And people would go, oh, I don't even see them. What do you mean? How are they? Well, as I remember doing a video, and it was called All Divorces Start in Childhood. Because they do. And I'm not saying that to blame the family of origin. Everybody thinks I'm trying to blame. No, blame is a very bad thing. And it's a bad thing in the system's understanding. But recognizing how you fit in the system will enlighten your understanding so that you then can begin to function better as an adult. And so I would train them and teach them, which is what I do in my programs and workshops and stuff. Let's talk about what's actually going on. You now have this enmeshed relationship with your husband or wife or boyfriend or girlfriend. Okay, where did that start? I'm sorry, it didn't start with this relationship. It started way a long time ago. And are you functioning in that family way right now? Because the family has the Wi-Fi, the super self of the family that continues on throughout our life. That's how connected we are. Now, that's not doom and gloom. Self-differentiation is learning to become more self-differentiated from that so that it doesn't have that power to affect me in my relationships and work. And, people who grew up in alcoholic homes then go work at a hospital and find out the department functions like an alcoholic family. Now, why is that? Because they're still operating in their alcoholic family in here, even though everyone has passed away in that family, let's say. But it's what's in here, not what they're doing. It's what I began with in the programming that I did. And that programming can be changed significantly and can really bring about more freedom. And so it would be that kind of a path that I would help people. And I think even reactivity. If someone is reactive, if I go, and reactivity, somebody can get upset over something. Often reactivity is the family system working in you right now. So if you're being reactive, probably your family's, that family programming and system that you're operating is still operating right now. Because oftentimes reactivity, just like defending yourself, somebody says, hey, Doug, I just think you have the worst podcast in the world. Now you can defend yourself. Say, well, I have a lot of listeners. I have a lot of, and I think it's even rude that you said that. And how dare you, question my success? And do you know what all that is? That's family unresolved. Because what they said to you really could have no meaning at all. Why does it give you meaning? Why do you take it as meaningful? I mean, okay, I tell people, they say, oh, well, I don't like you. Find somebody else. There are lots of vegetable stands out there. Go buy your vegetables somewhere else, as the psychiatrist I work for would always say. Then go to another vegetable stand. That's fine. Maybe I'm not for you. No problem. But if I become reactive, then oftentimes I'm becoming reactive to something long ago in this situation. And if I'm not aware of that, it makes it more difficult to make progress. It does make it. So I like to zoom out, which is what a family systems approach, which I take, does, rather than zoom in and go, okay, now you're being reactive. Okay, instead of saying that, Doug, say this in that moment of reactivity. That's kind of a silo approach. And it can be helpful, but I like to zoom out so that we can fix the larger pattern and not just the A causes B, B causes C. I like the system approach.